Perfect. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for taking some time to be here with me today. We are going to do an AmeriCorps VISTA overview for Montana Campus Compact VISTA program for our upcoming service term, which is 2023 through 2024. You have all elected into a year-long service term. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. There we go. So you should all know me. My name is Callie Foster. I'm the VISTA program director here with Montana Campus Compact. I went ahead and put my contact information in there for you. I was hoping that we could take a few minutes for all of you to introduce yourselves. Please give your name, the organization in which you will be hosting your VISTA at, the location, and what project year. And when I say project year, I just mean, what year are you at for this project? I'll just go ahead with start with whoever's below me, which is Sunny.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sunny Day Robert. I'm the Director of American Indian Outreach here at MSU Billings campus, and the year is for the coming June.
Yeah, and Sunny, you'll be on your second project year.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. And then how about you, Margaret?
Hi, I'm Margaret Davies. I work for Montana State University. I'm the Basic Needs Program Manager here, doing food security and affordable housing programming. And Kim Cleary, who's also on the call, and I are co-supervising a VISTA, hopefully to start in this June for our first year. And then organizations, Montana State University Office of Student Engagement, in partnership with the Streamline, which is our local bus system. And it will all be essentially on campus and in Gallatin County.
Great. Kim, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, my name is Kim Cleary. I also work at Montana State in Bozeman with Margaret. I am the Community Engagement Program Manager, so I do a lot of our community service focused programming. Yeah, and everything that Margaret said is what's happening. And it'll be I don't know if Margaret mentioned, but it's our first project here.
Great. And how about you, Morgan?
Hi, everyone. My name is Morgan Massione. I am the program director at the Historic Clark Chateau in Butte. And we have a nonprofit that runs through the Historic House Museum and Community Center. And the nonprofit we run is the Root and the Bloom Collective. And so the Root and the Bloom Collective it will be their second project year for the 2023-2024 year. Thank you.
Thank you, Morgan. And Laura.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Laura Olsenassi, and I'm the president of Moving Mountains Foundation. And this is our third year in the program, and upcoming in this August. So we're really excited. And so Moving Mountains Foundation, we do free developmental screening for children in low socioeconomic facilities. And then we also do education and then community involvement for individuals with disabilities.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, moving forward. I'd like to give a brief overview of where we're planning to have members this year, just so you have an idea. So we'll have members in Butte, Missoula, Ronan, and Arley, Billings, Havre, Helena, Livingston, Red Lodge, Fort Peck, and Bozeman. So we're hoping to have members all across the state, predominantly, in the western area of Montana, but we're really trying to get over into East Montana as well. So we're hoping that this will kind of get you inspired to maybe have some cross collaboration within the cohort. If you have partners in any of these areas, it'd be good to connect your members there. And we try to do a good job of connecting our members with each other across the state as well. Okay, so a little bit about Montana Campus Compact and our VISTA program. This is a really brief overview, but MTCC, we're a statewide coalition of colleges and university presidents who are committed to addressing community needs through the resources of higher education. So that's just, the umbrella mission of Montana Campus Compact. And then within MTCC, we run two AmeriCorps programs. I am the director of the VISTA program. And so VISTA members are placed in community organizations, public agencies, usually with state government agencies or college campuses, as well as K through 12 schools, to create and expand programming that ultimately build capacity and bring low income individuals and communities out of poverty. So that's really addressing the AmeriCorps goal of the VISTA program, to build capacity. And then the entire umbrella goal of AmeriCorps is to alleviate poverty. I also wanted to say, if any of you have questions throughout this, I did leave a few minutes at the end for questions, but I'm pretty informal with it. So if you just want to kind of unmute or raise your hand, I'd be happy to take a break and answer your questions. So I also like to give this overview, although it really doesn't affect, your placement, your project or anything, but I do like to give an overview of kind of how AmeriCorps is structured. So AmeriCorps is run by the Corporation for National and Community Service. I think they have recently changed their name, but most people know them as the Corporation for National and Community Service. They have three kind of silos of grant and project types. And so there's two AmeriCorps ones, and then something called the Social Innovation Fund. We run under, the middle tier of this of AmeriCorps, and so they have NCCC. Those are members that serve on a shorter term, and they travel across a certain region of the US. They have to be between the ages of 18 and 26. They're put in a cohort, and they travel around a region, like I said, and serve on a few projects for 6 to 8 weeks at a time. And then there's state and national grants. These are grants that fund programs that are more focused on direct service. So serving beneficiaries of programs directly. There, we call them like the front lines of AmeriCorps. And then there's VISTA. VISTA, again, is focused on capacity building, more behind the scenes of creating and expanding programs, leveraging resources, etc. Within the VISTA structure, we used to have state offices. So we had someone in Helena who helped run our VISTA program, but they have since, I think 3 years ago, maybe, they restructured and started having regional offices. So our regional office that I report to is in Denver, Colorado. And I fall under, I'm considered a sponsoring organization, or Campus Compact is. And it's also synonymous with intermediary. So MTCC is considered an intermediary. We report back to the regional office. And then we partner with what they call VISTA subsites, which is you and your organization. And then it kind of trickles down to subsite supervisor, which again is you, and then VISTA members. So that's kind of the structure of VISTA. There is a different type of structure where it's a single site, and you can think of these as like large kind of corporate nonprofits that get an AmeriCorps grant, such as like the Boys and Girls Club, Girl Scouts, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, YMCAs. And so they are a single site. They have one supervisor, and then they bring on a lot of AmeriCorps members under that one site. So we kind of fall in this structure. So I just like to give that as a brief overview so you can kind of understand the bureaucracy of AmeriCorps. So moving on, a little more information about VISTA and our programming. As I mentioned, the goal is to help alleviate poverty. Members do serve full time, so that's 24/7. They are given a living allowance for a full 365 days. We try to train them on that this is not a 9-to-5 job. There may be some weekends that they need to serve if you're hosting an event, such as a community event, and they need to be there to help manage volunteers. make sure it runs smoothly, or there may be some evenings as well. We do expect members to serve 40 hours a week, so they shouldn't be serving for 7 days out of the week if it's more than 40 hours a week. So you'll want to stay within those time constraints. So you as a service site supervisor, you provide the day-to-day supervision of your VISTA. You are expected to provide supplies, equipment, and training. So that includes supplies that they need to successfully complete tasks, a computer, access to a phone, internet, basic office supplies. Your project must build capacity and focus on indirect service. So that is, again, more behind the scenes of creating and expanding programs. I do understand that occasionally a member does have to provide a little bit of direct service because that's almost unavoidable in any sort of service position, but you should really be focusing on the capacity building aspects of your project. Your project must also align with our program priorities, which is education, veterans, and community resiliency. And then you should have seen in the MOU that was provided as resource materials when you were applying to host a VISTA that we do have a cost share fee, which for an affiliate campus, which is if you are at a campus or if your project is at a campus that is part of the Campus Compact Network, the fee is $7,000, and then non-affiliates, which would be campuses outside of our network or community organizations, government agencies, and that's $9,000 per member. Just breezing right through. So during the application process, once you were approved to host a VISTA, you had to fill out a position description template. Those within the AmeriCorps system are actually called VISTA assignment descriptions. We typically call them VADs. For those of you that are bringing on, your second member, you should be familiar with what a VISTA assignment description is. Essentially, it's a position description. It describes the VISTA's role, including the overarching goal. It also outlines specific objectives and activities for your members' service year. It's really meant to be kind of like a roadmap where it outlines objectives as well as member activities. And we train them during orientation that they should really be focusing on this VISTA assignment description throughout their term. When they kind of get stuck, they can refer back to it, or they can use it kind of as like a roadmap because they're, a year is not that much time. It does seem like it's a lot of time, but it's really not. And so we try to tell them, think about this and what you can achieve in a year. We framed it as something that is achievable within a year. And then also, it can evolve to fit the VISTA member and project needs. So a VISTA assignment description is not set in stone throughout the service term. It is something that we can revise, and I have done that before. It's a pretty simple process for me to revise or for me to get them approved. I do ask that if you want to revise your VAD, please feel free to do that on your own, submit it to me, and then I will submit it to AmeriCorps for approval. If you have any questions about VAD revision, contact me and we can always walk through it. I've had sites in the past kind of send me a draft of their revisions before we get it approved. Okay, so here's kind of a VAD sample. Again, it mentions the project goal, the overarching goal, and then it breaks out into objectives and then member activities under those objectives. When you see your official VAD or your member presents it to you, which they should be doing within the first week of their service, all of this information up here, you can pretty much ignore. A lot of it is just the nitty-gritty information that we need within our grant, but you really want to be focusing on like the meat of the VAD that you designed and submitted to us. I like to give tips to folks. Tip one is, VISTA members are most successful when their supervisors understand and follow the VAD. VISTA members should not really be working or serving on tasks outside of the VISTA assignment description. If you do want to add an additional objective or multiples, or remove objectives, we can definitely do that. Again, if the VAD needs revised due to project changes, you can contact me. Okay, so you might have seen in your project proposal application that you submitted, months ago, there was some items where we had you fill out where you would identify a campus and community partner. So we view this as really vital to the mission of MTCC, and also helps your VISTA succeed in their project. So it is required. You identified the project partner during project development. It's really a partnership there to address community needs by utilizing the resources of higher education. So when I think about those resources, you can think about, if you're a community organization and like you need some consulting, or you're looking for volunteers, professors are usually experts within their field. College campuses are a great place to find student volunteers as well as community volunteers if you're looking to have a volunteer project on your campus. And then also, I know we've used the campuses as a resource in the past, and so a few of my other sites have, where they use like physical space on campuses to host events. Usually they are very affordable and or free. So those are just a few examples. We've seen some campus partnerships really blossom. We had a project several years ago where students were identifying that they are food insecure and they did not have transportation, and they lived in a food desert. So they leveraged the ability for that college campus to accept things like food stamps. So students could actually access food on campus and purchase it. A tip is to communicate who your campus or community partner is with your VISTA soon after they start. Provide an introduction between them and your VISTA member. We kind of leave this pretty open for sites. We want you to figure out how that partnership is going to improve your project. We don't really put these like hard perimeters on it because we know that every site is different, but you want to be thinking about how your VISTA can utilize the partner to help, create or expand your programming. Okay, moving on. If there's no questions, again, feel free to interrupt me. So something that we require that your VISTAs do and submit to us is a monthly work plan. And your monthly work plan will be submitted, or your VISTA's monthly work plan will be submitted to us in the beginning of every month. We review it. We ask that you review the work plan with your VISTA, just so you can stay on track with what they have what they have as tasks for the upcoming month. They'll need to submit it to us in their monthly reporting. We'll review it. We don't really need to approve it or deny it. It's just a way for us to kind of keep tabs on what they have going on at their service site. I'm sure all of you have heard of SMART goals, but we train them on these metrics. So make sure that your work plan includes goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. Okay. So your VISTA is serving for 365 days. There's not really a clock in, clock out sort of system that VISTA requires for our members. Our expectation is that they are serving full time, so approximately 40 hours a week. We understand that some weeks it might be less, some weeks it might be more, but we ask them to complete an activity log. So an activity log is essentially a timesheet, and we keep these on record for 7 years after your VISTA leaves. They are considered a federal document once they are submitted to us. And so they'll log their hours, a brief overview of the activities that they're doing on a daily basis, and then mark down their personal and medical leave as well on these forms. Supervisors will need to sign off on an activity log each month before the VISTA can submit it to us. And then VISTAs will submit these through their monthly reporting. And I'll get into that in a few slides. This is just kind of like the first half, little snippet of what an activity log looks like. And here is an entire one. So we ask the member to write down their name, the month and the year, week 1, week 2, all the way to week 5 of a month. If there is 5 weeks in the month, we ask them to put the dates here. We want them to also put bullet points of kind of what they do, what they're doing on that day, when they started service, when they ended service, and the total hours. So they'll put in their total hours of the week here. These exceptions are personal, medical, and emergency leave. They'll need to jot down if they took any of the leave that they are allotted. And then at the bottom, they'll put their total personal leave, total medical leave for the month. The VISTA will need to sign off on this and date it. And then you as a site supervisor will also need to sign it and date it. Last year was the first year that I started doing this, but I no longer accept digital signatures on these. They need to be physical signatures. You need to get that pen on the paper before it is submitted to us. Just due to some challenges that we've had in the past with digital signatures. So we're only accepting original signatures. Your VISTA will need to either take a photo of this and upload it into their monthly report, or they need to scan it into the system and attach it and upload it to the monthly report. These are going to be provided to your VISTA in digital form. If your VISTA is interested in physical form, these are easily printed off. It just needs to you just need to make sure that it's landscape when printing instead of portrait. I also suggest that you keep a copy of this for your records as well, just so you can keep track of personal, medical, and emergency leave that they're taking. And also, if you need to kind of go back and see what they've been working on over the past few months, this is a great way to kind of see the brief overview of what they've been working on. Any questions so far? I feel like I'm kind of whizzing through this. No? Okay. So because we are grant funded through the federal government, compliance is really important to us. I've tried to kind of just condense this down into the major compliance topics. So for VISTA members, to stay in compliance with our grant, they need to submit monthly reports. That is via Qualtrics. That's just like kind of an online platform that we use. Oftentimes it's used for like surveying people, but you can create reports. They are sent that every month. And so they'll just click the link, enter in their data. They'll have the opportunity to provide some narratives as well to us about, project successes and challenges that they've had. If they want to share photos with us, that's really great too. And this is their place to do it. Excuse me. Again, to stay in compliance, they'll need to submit their monthly work plans to us. And then the VISTA activity logs as well. That is something that they'll just be able to upload into Qualtrics when they submit their monthly report. As a site supervisor, to stay in compliance, you'll need to sign activity logs monthly. It's best to just do that at like a weekly meeting that you have with your member, review it, sign off on it so they can upload it. We ask that you review monthly reports and work plans. Typically, I see site supervisors, they'll do, the first few months of reports with their members and then kind of just allow them to do it for the rest of the year. So I encourage you to ask them about it and see if you can't take a look at this report the first couple months of their service term. You'll need to submit VISTAs personal and medical days to us as well. That is sent through a monthly Google form by one of our work study students. If you lose track of personal and medical leave, you can always contact me and ask, you know, hey, what have I submitted? So you can stay in line with, you know, the days that your VISTA has said that they've taken, and then the days that you have jotted down as well. At the end of every term, we ask that the member work with the site supervisor to complete an end of term impact report. This is just a one-page narrative where they answer certain questions about the successes and challenges of their service term. We typically use this to send up the chain to the regional office. They want to see kind of what the overall experience and data is for service sites. Also, we conduct site visits. We call them monitoring meetings, site visits, compliance meetings. You'll kind of hear all of those terms. We typically try to visit in person a few months after your VISTA starts in, you know, midsummer or the end of summer. And so we give them some time to kind of get their feet wet in the project, get comfortable, get to know their community and their service site before we visit and kind of ask them how things are going. We make sure that the service site is appropriate for them. And then in spring of 2024, kind of dependent on weather, I've had to cancel a few of those this spring due to weather. It's either going to be via webinar or in person. And the one in the spring is more focused on, okay, are we still in compliance with our grant? Is the VISTA, you know, still having an okay time at their service site? And then how do we really like get them ready to start thinking about transitioning out of service and what the next steps are? So you will most likely be seeing me 2 times in person or via webinar for monitoring visits. They aren't as scary as some people think they are. We really just want to hear how things are going. What's your take on the project? And can we assist you in any way to make sure that it's the most successful project that we could put together? Okay, so thinking about personal and medical leave, each VISTA is allotted 10 personal leave days and 10 medical leave days. Those pretty much, they're given them right when they start service. It's not kind of like, oh, you serve a certain amount of time and you accrue personal and medical leave. We do encourage them not to take personal leave like a vacation within the first couple months of their service term, just so they can really get acclimated to their service. VISTA does offer 1 week of emergency leave if the member experiences a death or critical illness in immediate family. A really nice perk about this is if your member does experience an emergency and needs to go home, AmeriCorps will pay for a round trip transportation for your member. This is just domestic travel. If the member needs to travel internationally, VISTA will pay for a flight to get them to the closest like border, and then they have to pay personally to get overseas. So that is, emergency leave can be used. VISTAs just need to fill out an intake form and kind of describe the nature of their emergency and what assistance they need from us, whether that is, okay, are we asking AmeriCorps to pay for a plane ticket, a bus ticket, reimbursement, a train ticket, those sorts of things, because not all members will fly if they are experiencing an emergency. And then national holidays, our policy with national holidays is VISTAs receive the national holidays that the service site takes. We do expect you to allow them to have 11 national holidays throughout the year, because those are typically the federal holidays that we receive here at the University of Montana. If you do not have a policy in place of the national holidays that your office takes, you can use the University of Montana's, and that is listed on our website. So it's kind of up to you how you want to handle it, but we do expect your members to receive days off for these holidays. And then just as a tip, it's your responsibility to ensure your VISTA follows these guidelines because they are going to be at your service site, you know, day to day. I'm not always going to be in contact with your VISTA. Okay, so personal and medical leave, we do send it out through a Google form to be completed each month. You'll receive an email, most likely from Josie Diaz. He's our work study student that we've had doing this for a couple years. He does send out like the initial email, I think at the beginning of the month, and you'll report for the previous month. It's pretty simple, just ask you what month are you reporting for, what's your VISTA's name, what's your name, what medical days did they take off, what personal days did they take off. And then we keep that for our records. We compare it to the days that your VISTA put in their activity log. If you have any trouble with this Google form, feel free to either email myself or Josie. Okay, so maybe wondering if your VISTA can hold outside employment and education. The short answer is yes, but there are some caveats associated with this. So if your VISTA is interested in getting a part-time job outside of service, it is allowable. You just need pre-approval by you, Montana Campus Compact, and the regional office. There is a form that we provide your VISTA at the beginning of their service term that they can use to communicate that they got an outside job. The one thing that we let them know is that employment cannot interfere with the designated service duties as determined by the supervisor. So you'll want to figure out a good schedule for, you know, if you can accommodate them. Most VISTAs that I see that hold outside employment, they either, you know, serve or work some sort of customer service type job on the weekends or the evenings. Educational courses, you know, full-time enrollment is prohibited while they're in service, but part-time enrollment is allowable, but it must be approved by the host site and Montana Campus Compact. Again, just like employment, courses cannot interfere with designated service duties as determined by the supervisor. So again, you'll want to make sure that you're communicating what your needs are to your VISTA if they decide to take on outside employment or educational courses. During orientation, when I train VISTAs on this, I let them know that they committed to a year of service, and service is the #1 priority, whereas the outside employment should, you know, kind of be second to their service. Any questions on this? No? Okay. So again, I'm thinking about allowable and unallowable activities. They call these prohibited activities within AmeriCorps. And so as their official duties for their service, they should not be engaged in any sort of political engagement. So that includes lobbying. They should also not be conducting any sort of religious activities as part of their service duties. They are prohibited from doing any sort of union organizing or anti-union organizing as well. They cannot provide abortion services or referrals as a part of their official duties. They should not be consuming alcohol or any other, you know, substance while they are technically on the clock with your organization. And they should not be imposing any sort of safety risk to themselves or clients as an official part of their service duties. We often give members this tip at the bottom where if you want to engage in any of these activities, they need to be doing it on their own time. So when they're not at your service site, when they're not counting hours, they should be doing it in their own clothing. So they should not be wearing anything with the AmeriCorps A on it or anything that distinguishes them as an AmeriCorps member. And they should be doing it on their own device. So especially with political engagement, they should not be on their Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever social media they have, you know, talking about political stuff. They should not be on your computer at your service site doing any of these activities. But if they want to go home and jump on their computer or their phone and engage in, you know, political engagement, absolutely they can do that. Okay. Excuse me. So we do require your member to engage in trainings throughout their year with us. And so, excuse me, when they first come onto service, they are required to attend a state and MTCC pre-service orientation. So this is a 2.5-day orientation where we have them in person, most likely here on UM campus. We engage them in all sorts of trainings as well as team building sort of things. And so we call that PSO. There will be more information sent out to your members and yourself, such as an agenda, where to be. The great thing about this orientation for members is that they get to meet their cohort. We also provide lodging and food for them, so they shouldn't be paying anything out of pocket to attend this training. And then we do expect you as a site supervisor to conduct on-site orientation and training within their first 3 weeks. Really get them plugged into your organization, introduce them to other staff, help them navigate the community if they're new to your community, try to give them some tips on where they can go, you know, what's the best grocery store, what sort of like fun community events are going on during that time of year. Introduce them to anyone that you think, you know, could help them or that they could create, you know, a sense of community with. I ask you to please plan ahead on how you'll train and orient your VISTA. You don't want them to just like show up the first day and be like, oh, I haven't really thought about this. Try to come up with, you know, at least a brief training plan of how you're going to get them, you know, going at your service site. A little bit more about the on-site orientation and training. We do provide a template, which is just really basic orientation and training. We're really hoping that it helps establish an effective working relationship between the VISTA and the supervisor, the site staff, and the community. So we break it out into 3 weeks. The first week is really focused on getting to know your organization and your community. And then week 2, you know, getting to know your community, your project, and your campus or community partner. And then week 3, really nailing down like work plan development. How are they going to get going on this stuff? What is the first priority for them to then build the confidence to move on to the next objective and member activity? We do have a supervisor and VISTA questionnaire that we ask you to complete within the first 30 days of your VISTA beginning their service term. We don't ask you to really like ask the questions and then tell us what the answers are. We just ask that you sign off on this form saying, yes, I asked these 8 to 10 questions. The questions that are included on that form are things such as like, what are your strengths and weaknesses? What's your communication preference? Do you do better with like face-to-face feedback? Do you want me to communicate over email? That sort of thing. And then it asks a little bit about like what sort of external pressures do you have on you outside of your service? Because some of these, we've seen some members, you know, they come from out of state, but back at home, they're still kind of juggling some family issues. They may have health conditions that they haven't really reported up until now that they may feel comfortable reporting to you during this questionnaire. And also because members are put essentially on the poverty line and they're given a very modest living stipend, you know, finances and budgeting are always something that is on a member's mind. So there are external pressures outside of service. Oh, a tip is when we give you the on-site orientation and training plan, we call it OSAT. You can add your information to this template as well to help guide your VISTA. Okay, so getting into best practices for supervision, I want to say, you know, a lot of these members, they're coming from out of state. They also, most of them we see are, you know, pretty green to the workforce. They may need a little bit of coaching. So you can expect to spend, you know, between 10 and 15% per week of your time and more at the beginning with your member, getting them oriented. Really try to think about how you can assimilate them into the community and the work environment. Some members may require some professional guidance. Again, you know, some of them come into service and they don't really know what like office culture is. They don't really understand how like nonprofits run or higher education institutes, etc. They may need a little bit of professional guidance, so please keep that in mind. Another thing as a best practice for supervisors is to treat your members as staff. You know, if you have a weekly staff meeting, invite them to it. If there are traditions that you do in your office with your permanent staff, try to include your member in it as best as possible. When members feel appreciated and a part of your organization, that really helps with retention. If they feel isolated and excluded, you know, that feeling mixed with the modest living stipend is a recipe for them to leave service, which we don't want to happen because it's ultimately going to halt the work that they were doing on your project. And so you just want to be thinking about how do you really bring them into your organization and embrace them. You can look at, or you can figure out what your supervision style is. I like to link this here. AmeriCorps or nationalservice.gov, they have a little quiz so you can kind of figure out what your supervision style is. I have a few more, you know, best practices. You know, site supervisor influence is really important. Just me, my personal experience, I came to Montana with like 3 weeks notice. I served in Helena. I had a really great site supervisor, and ultimately she was the reason why I decided to do a second term, because I felt like she was a mentor. She really cared about me, and I was willing to take on a second year of not really being paid much because I felt really appreciated and cared for at my service site. So our strongest site supervisors, or our strongest sites, have supervisors who really take responsibility for the VISTA project. You can't really just assume that the VISTA is going to come in and know exactly what they're doing. Take responsibility for what you've planned, what you want to achieve in your project. Communicate regularly and take time to meet with your VISTA. You want to make sure that you're giving them you know, some time every week for your undivided attention. Even if you don't really have, you know, big project things going on during that week, view that time as time to show that you care about them and get to know them. When they feel appreciated, again, they're going to stay. Invest in your VISTA's professional development. If you are sending your entire staff to a professional development opportunity, please invite your VISTA. If you have access to, you know, continuing education courses, and you can give them access to it, please give them some time to develop those skills. If you have a LinkedIn Learning account, maybe get them access to it. If they show interest in a conference and you have the budget, feel free to send them to that. This is a time for your VISTA to also gain professional development that's going to help them succeed into their next, you know, professional role. Also, I've mentioned this before, but kind of view this a little bit as like a mentorship. Again, they're agreeing to the workforce. They may not understand kind of office culture, how things go. Really show appreciation for like the purpose of the VISTA. You know, members are moving from out of state. They're not being paid much. They're really getting out of their comfort zone, trying to create a sense of community. Show them that you appreciate the work that they're doing. And then also our strongest sites, again, have site supervisors that understand the nuance of member identity. This is something that has come up to us directly from our members, that they're having a challenge with their site supervisor really understanding the nuances of their identity or things that they have experienced in the past. So I'll get into that a little bit. This is new for us. We've taken on a diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility initiative in our office. So we're trying to give you the opportunity to also be thinking about this, of how best we can support members. So thinking about member identity in today's workforce, by kind of understanding this and having strategies for success, it will really help you connect you to your VISTA. And so we're seeing the demographic of Gen Z coming into the workforce, and most of our applicants and candidates, they are Gen Z. So here's a little bit of statistics about them. Gen Z is composed of 61 million young people in the US right now, and they will comprise 30% of the workforce by 2023. They are more educated and more technologically skilled than previous generations. So kind of be thinking about that and the skills that they're bringing in and how they can utilize those skills to help your organization. They're more racially and ethnically diverse than previous generations, with nearly half identifying as a race other than white. And also 31% of Gen Zs identify something other than straight, and 60% believe the additional gender representation, such as trans or non-binary individuals, is needed for the workforce. So they may be coming in with a completely different, set of values than what may be represented at your site. It's good to really embrace that, though. And regardless of political affiliation, Gen Z is more politically progressive, especially in regards to social issues. So they may come in with some different opinions and ideas than you, but really try to embrace that. Strategies for success are really to be open-minded. Oh, my notes are gone. I had a whole spiel about this, y'all. Oh, here we go. So strategies for success, again, be open-minded. Don't assume anything about your VISTA, including race, gender, or sexuality. It's okay to ask questions. You just want to do it in a nice tone and not condescending. Really tell them why their project matters. Let them know why this project is important to you and to the overall goal of poverty alleviation and your mission. Set clear goals for them and tell them why service will benefit them in their future. Adapt your leadership style. I know some of us can kind of get stuck in what we know and what we think is right, but it's good to always be adapting. Adapt to the capabilities of your VISTA member. This generation is interested in collaborative management, and they want to be a part of the decision-making process. And then question your assumptions. I know sometimes if I meet a VISTA and they outwardly present themselves as female, that may not be, how they identify. Don't assume someone's pronouns, don't assume someone's gender, sexuality, those sorts of things. Also, one thing that I've learned from Conservation Corps is they question their assumptions all the time. The biggest person is not always going to be the strongest. A male is not always going to be the best at leadership, and that's what they tell their service sites. So really question your assumptions when interacting with your member. I have a few more slides too. Something else that we have been focusing on is neurodiversity in our office. Neurodiversity is really it's a movement promoting the acceptance of cognitive diversity. Members have the option of disclosing or requesting any sort of reasonable accommodations from the University of Montana, and then we'll work with you to accommodate your member. One thing that we think is important is that there are a lot of strengths from neurodiverse individuals. And so neurodiversity is a movement promoting the acceptance of cognitive diversity. It's also a label one can choose to take or not to take, regardless of neurological conditions. Generally neurodiverse people have neurological conditions such as autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, Tourette syndrome, and so on. The opposite of being neurodiverse is being neurotypical. So these might be some terms that you hear, and these conditions provide a unique set of strengths and also create personal challenges for members that are coming in with any sort of neurodivergent condition. Disclosure of someone's status as neurodivergent is their personal choice. If they choose to confide in you, you can ask them questions about their neurodiversity, but you should consider the information private to you and only you unless they state otherwise. Do not disclose to anyone without explicit permission, including HR. It's up to the member if they want to disclose that information to you and to our HR. Also, something that we've learned that I find interesting is that most neurodivergent individuals, they do not disclose the information out of fear of retaliation or being seen as less than in the workplace. Okay, so if your member is neurodivergent, whether they let you know or not, you might want to be just thinking about how to support neurodiverse members. So it's always best to ask them what they need. Don't, just ever do what you think is best for them. And quietly assess those needs. If you notice someone struggling, offer them what you can. Try to be non-judgmental. And also a really great way to support them is to promote their interests, encourage them to share, and where possible, tap into their interests. Provide structured way to review needs. So preferably during that individual one-on-one time that you have with them during weekly meetings. And most importantly, try to provide an environment where they feel comfortable unmasking and being their authentic selves. Most neurodivergent individuals, it's really exhausting and they have to spend their whole day masking in front of others. So trying to figure out ways where they can unmask and feel safe and comfortable in your workplace is really important and will help them succeed. Okay. So some common neurodiverse challenges that individuals see or experience are sensory issues. It's good if you do have a neurodivergent member to maintain less visual noisy environment. If you can, turn down the lights, provide noise canceling headphones, and provide a quiet or dark space to recover. They may experience communications issues. Neurodiverse individuals are not the best at like reading between the lines. So you just want to be literal with them, be direct, let them know exactly what they need. Sometimes they need communication in just a very binary sort of way. And allow them to respond on their own time. They may need time to really think about it, digest it. They're not going to have these quick firing off ideas or decision-making skills. So you just want to make sure that you're giving them enough time. Oh, I realized I did not. Oh, here we go. They may experience executive function issues, so difficulty with focusing, multitasking. It's good to provide instructions in writing so they can follow it step by step. It would be best to provide a low distraction workspace for these individuals as well. Again, providing noise canceling headphones can really help. They may also experience some emotional regulation issues. Including rejection sensitivity, if they feel as if their ideas or themselves are being rejected, they may take that a little more sensitive than a neurotypical person might. Make sure they know they are valued. This, I think, is important for all members, not just neurodivergent members. Give them space to calm down if they're upset. I think that is best for all people, but you want to keep that in mind, especially if your member has emotional regulation challenges. And so some other common neurodiverse challenges is language processing issues. So you can provide dyslexia font such as Open Dyslexic. This is an example of it. So it makes sure that no other letter looks like another letter. So they are able to read it, easier for them to digest it and understand it. I put a link here for an organization that provides these types of fonts to you, so you can download them and have them on the computer for your member. Physical coordination issues, you can provide notes or laptop for them to take notes, or you can have someone else perform a physical task for them. Social issues, do not make social events mandatory. or don't just kind of throw it at them at once. They may need some planning, to get comfortable or reduce their anxiety. They may experience some routine change issues. It's best, especially for an individual that has autism, routines are the best. So try to be, if you need to be flexible, that makes sense. If you need to change things up a bit, that makes sense with circumstances, but it's best to kind of keep a routine with neurodiverse folks. Okay, moving on. But with challenges also come strengths. So common neurodiverse strengths are pattern and trend recognition. They're often individuals that are very honest with you. They have holistic thinking skills, as well as strategic thinking skills, problem solving as well. They're often very creative and proactive folks. They typically bring their most authentic self, with them when they feel that they can unmask and be, comfortable and safe. And they often become experts in things that they're really interested in. So again, finding something that they are good at and interested in, they're most likely going to become an expert in it, which could ultimately help you in your service or in your project. Okay, so outside of helping neurodivergent members, I'm just getting back into how you can help your VISTA member holistically, whoever they are. So you may be thinking, okay, well, what can I do to help my member outside of their service and kind of orienting them best to their service? Most of our members, we see they come from out of state. Most of them have never been to Montana. They may need help with they may need some assistance in locating housing. So if you have, a volunteer that has a room in their house that they could provide to the member, or a board member that has some, ways of assisting in locating housing, please tap into those resources. I can kind of tell them, okay, check Craigslist or connect with this other member to find housing, but I'm not in your community all the time. I don't really know what that landscape looks like. You are able to provide housing or rent assistance for your member, but that is, you have to pay it directly to their landlord. You cannot give your member, cash to pay for housing, but you can definitely kind of work around it if you do have some extra funds in your budget and you want to help them with the housing voucher. We've seen sites do this over the past few years, and it's actually been pretty successful. But we just say, hey, you're allowed to do this, and then we can provide assistance, but typically we expect you to kind of coordinate this with your member and their landlord. You can provide food and gifts. I actually need to edit this slide because you cannot give cash as a gift, but you can give gift cards. So please exclude this out of your notes if you're taking notes on this. You can provide gift cards to your member. If your organization orders agency logo apparel that you give to your staff, please think about providing that to your member as well, especially for members that are coming from outside of Montana who may not have that much experience with winter weather. If you're providing zip up hoodies or jackets or anything, they may end up utilizing that a lot more than you think they would. Any sort of promotional items, feel free to give them that. And then also a really important one is provide recognition. If you have a newsletter that you send out to your beneficiaries, maybe introduce your VISTA in that newsletter and say who they are. If you have social media and you want to blast out a great thank you about your member, they feel really appreciated, because we see members, they're trying to share their experience with people back at home. So they can easily just reshare it and say, hey, look what I'm doing. And that's a way for their family to know that they're having a good time during their service and that they're actually completing things and getting things done. So those are just some tips on how you can support your member. If you are interested in providing housing or rent assistance to them and you kind of need some guidance, feel free to contact me and I can kind of excuse me, connect you with sites that have done it in the past, or how we've done it with members such as our VISTA leader, because we provide housing assistance for them. Okay, I'm almost done. So I like to put this in here. If anyone wants to unmute themselves and kind of give a brief overview of how you plan to orient your VISTA to your project, your organization, and your community, feel free to do that right now.
I have a running drive. So anything that's going up, we have a general orientation that's worked really well with previous members. And so we always are modifying that. And so we're going to do the general piece. And then as things are coming up, I just keep adding to it. So then I can share it with him as soon as it comes, instead of fragmentedly trying to pull things together at the last minute. So that's been helpful.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Laura. Does anyone else like to share? Yeah, Sunny.
So I have a PowerPoint, and then I also have a drive with like a lot of information in regards to Montana Tribe. And then we partner a lot with Office of Public Instruction, Indian Education for All website. And that has a ton of information on the various like tribes within Montana, and then who we partner with within the higher education level.
That's great. Yeah, definitely thinking about like who you can connect your VISTA to, creating like a contact list of people that your previous VISTA or that your staff frequently contacts or communicates with is a great idea as well. Does anyone else want to share?
I can just briefly say in Office of Student Engagement, we have kind of a Trello process of a bunch of different orientation pieces to go through, including meeting with all of the different staff and either getting a coffee or just having a walking or lunch meeting to learn about what they do. And we're going to have a similar process with the folks at Streamline to get them just familiar really early on with all of the different people in their sphere.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, those early connections really make a difference because it can help them understand the project, as well as know who to contact with certain questions, or possibly who they're going to be working with on a certain project throughout their year. Great, thank you for sharing. Okay, so I also, I see some things in the chat. Okay, Sarah said they provide inclusion in any and all meetings. They also do some organizational fun things such as a backcountry backpacking trip, river floats, visits, and opportunities to work with our partners such as Mountain Time Arts, 150th Yellowstone Revealed. This creates a sense of place and why we work to conserve and be more inclusive in our community. Great, thank you, Sarah. So I also like to provide the link for vistacampus.gov. That is something, it's an AmeriCorps platform that you can create an account, and it has a lot of really great resources, such as a supervisor manual and the member handbook, as well as some free webinars on how VISTA and AmeriCorps views programming and how best to support a member. So you can sign up for that. We also encourage members to sign up in VISTA Campus because there are some really great resources about, community assessment, stakeholder engagement, grant writing, how best to plan like an advisory committee, those sorts of things. So we encourage members to also sign up for VISTA Campus. So you can do that as well. I have an account with VISTA Campus. It's open to anyone and it's completely free. Okay, another thing that we've seen that really helps with member retention is sharing great stories and photos of your VISTA members and the work that they're doing within your community. Typically, we also take these great, highlights and stories and include them in our reports to AmeriCorps to show the impact that VISTAs are making in their service. And then also, it's a great way for you to also show recognition for your member as well. So I encourage you to take photos, post on social media, share in newsletters. If you do press releases, maybe include what your VISTA is doing with that project, and then blogs. I know VISTAs do a lot of really important behind the scenes work that goes kind of unacknowledged, or the acknowledgement is not given until after the project is done and they're away. So really think about the impact that acknowledgement has on these members. They want to feel like they are making a difference within their service. So this is a great way to show, yes, like the impact is visible, the results are tangible, you're here for a reason, we value you, we see the purpose in your hard work. And then feel free to tag us in anything, because we also like to reshare things that sites are posting on their social media onto our social media to just spread awareness of your project as well as our programming. Okay, so I'm going to spend I have 5 more minutes left. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about COVID, because AmeriCorps, the VISTA regional office, does still acknowledge that COVID exists. VISTA is allowing teleservice for members, and so they view it as VISTA members are the best person to make the decisions for themselves. I've included this Q&A link here. Also, if you just Google AmeriCorps VISTA COVID Q&A, it will come up, and there's a bunch of questions and answers that they've updated since 2020. But I did want to let you know that they are allowing for teleservice for members. Teleservice is not the same as remote service. So your member, to engage in teleservice, they still need to be living and serving in your community. So within that greater region of where your organization is. They cannot be out of state engaging in AmeriCorps service. They are also allowed to have kind of like a hybrid teleservice situation. And so if like your staff is still on a hybrid schedule, they are also allowed to be on a hybrid schedule of serving from home or serving in person. So please take the time to think about if this is something you can accommodate if your member is interested in teleservice. And then COVID best practices. If your VISTA is teleserving in any capacity, we do require a teleservice request form. You can find the request form here at this link. It is a fillable PDF, and this is a document that I will accept digital signatures on. And so once that form is completed, I will put it in my files, in your member files, and keep it on hand or here. You'll want to make sure that you schedule it with them if they are completing teleservice. Your VISTA must confirm that they have appropriate equipment. So they need to have, a computer, access to internet, phone, and a safe environment to engage in any sort of teleservice. Teleservice is not really something that I'm like trying to sell to members. I kind of just inform them that it is an option, but it needs to be you need to be in an agreement with your member and the service site to do teleservice. Again, a couple other COVID best practices. If your VISTA is reporting to your service site, you must provide a VISTA with appropriate equipment. Again, that's computer, internet, phone, safe environment, and access to proper PPE. If they are still interested in wearing a mask, please try to provide those to your member. Communication is key here. It kind of depends on people's personal comfortabilities with COVID. So you just want to make sure that you're communicating with them, letting them feel, that their preference is a priority to you, because ultimately they get to decide what is most important to them. I realize that I am clicking on a different one. Okay, so here's that link for the teleservice agreement form. And then, try to prepare them for COVID procedures and scheduling. If you have a certain procedure for staff and faculty that are experiencing COVID, please educate your member on what that procedure is and how they should behave based off of that procedure, if they do come in contact with someone that has COVID or have COVID themselves. So the first timeline, or for the first several weeks, the timeline, I tried to keep this pretty brief because we have those 2 start dates of June and in August. So the orientation with MTCC is either going to happen on June 6th or August 14th. This, I completely got the dates wrong. It's actually August 14th through the 16th, excuse me. I will be sending out more information about this. So this isn't the only place where you'll see these dates. I'm going to send out a program calendar to all of you. So you'll be able to see when things are due, when your member needs to be in person for certain trainings, and kind of what our expectations are of those deadlines that we set. I do try to conduct program director and site supervisor check-in calls throughout the end of summer and the beginning of fall, just to see, you know, how things are going with you, if there's anything that I can do to assist you in your project and supporting your members. So those will just be, you know, pretty quick, like 20 to 30-minute calls. Just seeing how things are going and checking in. But I do want to say you can always contact me at any time. My phone number was at the beginning of this webinar, as well as it'll be at the end as well. Okay, so that was my last slide. Are there any questions, anything I didn't cover? Again, here is my contact information, my email, and my office phone number.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So Kim and I started this process a little late, so we're still in the process of kind of promoting to try and hire. We emailed just a little bit, and you basically said, you know, we can promote as we see fit. But in the event that we actually find somebody, then what is the process? Are we just connecting them with you so you get their info, or is there a different portal that they would fill out their information on, or how does that work?
Yeah, so typically if you have a local recruit, you can introduce me to that person, and then we can put them through our intake interview. They will have to fill out, you know, the AmeriCorps application. Things can get a little wonky with that because we typically run them through, okay, they're an outside recruit, we run them through our process. But if you connect them with us, we'll kind of run them through that same process. But there's not going to be that same like, oh, here's an applicant for you, review their information, set up the interview. You're already most likely going to know who they are. So the communication is going to be a little less between us and the applicant and you. You will have to conduct your own interview and approve that person and say, yes, we want to go through with it. And that candidate will also have to do the same with our office of communicating, yes, I want to go through with it. So yeah, you'll just connect them with us and we'll run them through the necessary information that we need to get from them. And then there's not going to be like the matching sort of process in our office. If they want to serve with you and you want to bring them on, we kind of just cut out a few of the recruitment steps.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So like right now, as it stands, if somebody fills out an AmeriCorps application, can they see our basically job posting through the AmeriCorps website? Okay.
They can, yeah, it's listed there. They can apply directly to it. And then also if candidates submit an AmeriCorps application, we send them links to our website with all of the other positions listed. So if they don't necessarily see your position on the AmeriCorps website, when they check our website, they may have seen like, oh, I saw this other position, but I'm actually more interested in the MSU one. And then they can communicate what their top preference is to us. So they don't necessarily have to find your direct link on the AmeriCorps site. They'll hear more information from us during the intake process.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, well, with that, I will end the webinar now. I just want to say thank you all for being here. And if you have any questions that kind of come up after this, feel free to call me or email me. I'm available pretty much at any time. Okay, well, then I will end the meeting. Thank you all for being here.